Yeah, it has been since 2014 because I got diagnosed with mold toxicity. I didn't know what was wrong with me for about 2 years. Sleep was getting less and less. My temper was getting worse and worse. If I look at I've written a few books. If I look at some of the books that I've written then, it seems like someone else wrote them. It's completely different. It's not me. That's what got me going down like the biohacking rabbit hole to see, okay, where else is it mold? It's in grains, it's in coffee, it's in wine, it's in chocolate, it's in so many different places.
Welcome to the Decentralized Health Podcast and to episode number 17. Today's guest is Kris Gethin. Kris Gethin is one of the world's top body transformation specialists, voted #1 coach and trainer by platforms like bodybuilding.com and PT Academy. He's co-founder of Kris Gethin Gyms and Unmatched Supplements, former editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com, and the host of the Kris Gethin podcast. Kris is a best-selling author, pro bodybuilder, Ironman triathlete, ultra marathoner, and Spartan competitor. Kris has educated and inspired millions worldwide. Today, he coaches celebrities, trains clients online, and leads fitness, biohacking, and anti-aging retreats across the globe. Friends, welcome to the Decentralized Health Podcast and to Kris Gethin. Friends, welcome back to the Decentralized Health Podcast, and today we have an incredible guest. His name is Kris Gethin. I have been following this man for many, many years, and we share something in common, which we haven't actually spoken about yet. He comes from a lovely part of the UK called Wales. My mum's side of the family all come from Wales as well, so we have a really nice kind of heritage background. So I would love you to sit down, take notes, listen to this man's story, because he is an absolute legend in this space. And Kris, thank you so much for joining me, brother. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for having me, Mark. I appreciate the time and I appreciate the introduction. I'm glad that we finally made it happen. I know we were going back and forth for a while, but here we are. All good things come to those who wait.
They do, brother. They do. Everything happens in universal divine timing. So this is exactly when it was supposed to be. So for those who don't know you, who are you? Why are you in this industry? Kind of what do you do? All those beautiful things.
Sure. My name is Kris Gethin. I'm from, as you said, from Wales. Living in the US now. I'm in Boise, Idaho. I've moved through different countries, Australia, India, lived in different parts of the world, but Boise is the place that I absolutely love. I was in Wales just a couple of weeks ago, actually. I absolutely love Wales as well. But grew up on a farm there. The majority of my childhood, up until I was about 19 years old, was taken up racing motocross. And then downhill mountain biking. So I was into a lot of extreme sports and got kind of addicted to adrenaline. So once I gave up those sports, I kind of lost my way for a little while, turned to alcohol and drugs. I'd lost my purpose. I'd lost my identity. I didn't really know where my identity was and I had a lot of injuries from motocross and downhill mountain biking. So when I started actually doing rehab exercises with weight training, as opposed to osteopaths and massage therapy and things like that didn't really work for me, or chiropractic care, that's when I started to feel a little bit better about myself. I started getting that I felt better about myself physically. I'm relieved of the pain from the injuries. So now I'm overcoming the depression that I'd kind of fallen into post these extreme sports. So that's when I decided, hey, I want more of this. What can I do to facilitate myself a little bit better? Okay, I can eat better. I can feed my brain with nutrients that it's not necessarily getting, because now I'm reading a lot of content about how this can help me. And then I went to college for 3 years to study international health and sports therapy. And that was basically my ticket to go anywhere in the world, because it was an internationally recognized qualification, to learn my craft more and teach others. So, I never feel that you ever stop learning. What I learned in college was just a very, very small percentage of what I've learned since then, and will continue to learn. So I started working on cruise liners as a personal trainer and massage therapist, because I started off personal training, realizing then that the people in America, because I'm cruising the Caribbean, tipped the massage therapists more than the personal trainers. So halfway through my contract, I said, well, I've got all those qualifications as well. I'll do this. And then I did that for 8 months. I decided to go to Australia and kind of visit. got a job the second day I was there, just on a gym floor, and started doing personal training, and then kind of putting these trifold leaflets together that I'd made. And with my cardio in the morning, I'd put them through people's letterboxes and started doing then personal training at people's homes, in the parks and stuff like that. Over a couple of years, I saved enough money to purchase a gym. So I purchased a gym and ran that for a couple of years in Australia. And during that time, I wanted to know how I could reach out to more people. So I started writing articles, doing like fitness photography at the same time, and submitting that content to publications, which then got published. And that led to me getting a contract with Weider Publications in the US. So that was in LA. So that's like Muscle and Fitness, Flex Magazine, stuff like that. So then in 2000 and at the end of 2004, I moved to LA. I was doing that for several years, started publishing my own magazine as well, because I really enjoyed writing and photography, especially in the bodybuilding space. And then that got the attention of Ryan DeLuca, who was the founder of bodybuilding.com. He wanted an editor-in-chief. He asked me to interview for that. So I came up here to Boise, Idaho, where I am now, interviewed for that job, got that job, and that kind of led to me being with bodybuilding.com for many years. And then since then, I've kind of bounced around. Bodybuilding.com kind of become a little bit fragmented. So I left there, started working with celebs in the personal training space, started working with Bollywood stars. So I spent a lot of time in India, realizing that there was definitely a need for a decent gym or decent gyms, and there was a need for training of personal trainers there. Because what I found is that the clients generally told the trainers what to do, as opposed to the other way around. There was no value for them. So we started, myself and my business partner started a gym franchise over there. So we've got like 11, 12 gyms there currently.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We kind of consider them as academies to teach other trainers and people, and so they continue to have ongoing education to elevate that space. And I've started a couple of supplement companies, being involved in the industry for so many years, working with supplement companies. I did a couple of supplement companies, and I got one now called Unmatched Subs. So all these things kind of together keep me busy, keep me occupied. And, if I do have any spare time, I'm usually going to different events around the world, speaking on longevity, on peptides, health span, discipline, motivation, retreats, things like that.
Yeah. Because I've noticed as well, like with a lot of your content, you've moved more into that biohacking longevity space, and particularly with one of your unmatched supplements. Now you've got one called, I think it's called Longevity, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got longevity test, longevity EAAs, and longevity multi. Yeah.
So that's now your focus.
Yeah, it has been since 2014, because I got diagnosed with mold toxicity. I didn't know what was wrong with me for about 2 years. Sleep was getting less and less. My temper was getting worse and worse. If I look at I've written a few books. If I look at some of the books that I'd written then, it seems like someone else wrote them. It's completely different. It's not me. So once I got diagnosed, I spent 6 weeks in Dr. clinic in Oldsmar, Florida, to go through the detoxification process. That was just the start of it. It lasted a good 8 months of detoxification. That's what got me going down like the biohacking rabbit hole to see, okay, where else is there mold? It's in grains, it's in coffee, it's in wine, it's in chocolate, it's in so many different places, coffee being the worst. So that's where I started really looking at my blood markers, insulin resistance, inflammatory markers, and kind of going down that rabbit hole and kind of pursuing that more than anything. And that's, I started going to events in 2017, like KetoCon and stuff like that, and really, prioritizing my health span over aesthetics. You could put it that way.
Yeah, I've had exactly the same kind of journey. I was, again, like you, very much into the bodybuilding side, loving all the adrenaline stuff as well. Got into CrossFit, started coaching CrossFit. I was a personal trainer as well for like 12 years, 13 years. And it was only when I had a very similar experience where I had a biological age test done, and my biological age was 20 years older than what it should be.
Wow.
I was like, right, this isn't natural. This isn't what's supposed to be happening. And it was so bad at the time. Glycanage. I don't know if you know who Glycanage are.
Yeah. I use them every year. I've been using them every year since 2015.
they're an amazing company. I know Nicolina and Zori very well. I used to work for them as a consultant as well, but that's what got me into that company. Was Nicolina called me and was like, your results are so bad. What are you doing? We need you on a call. We need to figure out how to help you.
Yeah.
And so then in the end, I ended up starting working for them. And that's what got me into the whole biohacking side of things, was like, okay, so what can I do to mitigate all the damage that I've done? And that's how I got into all the blue light blocking glasses, the red lights, peptides. I mean, CrossFit kind of got me into the at that time, the more not the darker side of the web, but those types of forums to get those things, because they weren't so readily available. So a very, very similar story. You said at the beginning that you picked up quite a few injuries from your motocross days. When it comes to how you treated those injuries then, in the sense of like you went to the gym, you started training, getting through your range of motion, I guess, like the biomechanics, all that stuff, to now, with the knowledge that you now have, how have you, I guess, combined all of that together to help not just yourself, but the clients that you work with and so on?
Yeah, it's a few things. So they're all biohacks now. They're not so much, I guess the only thing that I'd get from our ancestral tenets would be like the grounding, earthing, because we know that we get so much inflammation from non-native EMFs and Wi-Fi, etc. So, I think earthing yourself as much as possible is very, very important. So I'm wearing, from the UK, those Bahi trainers, or I've got an earthing sheet, I've got an earthing mat at my desk there, or I'm outside on the grass. So I'm getting rid of any inflammation there. Stem cells, I've had stem cells on 4 occasions now. I'll usually fly to CPI in Mexico to get stem cells because I still do extreme stuff. I'm still mountain biking. I go snowboarding now here. I've gone heliboarding and tore my hamstring. I've gone snowboarding, tore my meniscus, tore my tricep off the bone. So I'm not going to slow down anytime soon, because now, and I'm not using this as a justification, but now I can get stem cells and I can heal. Of course, I had to have surgery to reattach my triceps. 70% of it come off the bones, so I had to have that reattached. But usually you don't come back from something like that. I was able to get stem cells very close, in timing after. And of course, there's the peptides that we all know of, the BBC, TB500, GHKCU, that I utilize at the same time to help heal so much quicker. Another example is that I tore my meniscus at the beginning of the year. And actually, sorry, the year before, but at the beginning of the year, it was so bad that I couldn't even get off the floor without being in pain and kind of limping. And had another MRI, and my surgeon, who's phenomenal, said, look, there's no way around it. You'll have to get surgery. And I said, well, just give me one more chance. I'll head on down to CPI in Mexico again. Got those stem cells. Of course, the hardest part is that you can't train for 3 months after getting the stem cells, because you can't cause trauma to another muscle group, because the stem cells will go there instead of where you actually need them. But 3 months after that, I started getting into training again. And now I'm just 100% back in. And, it's absolutely phenomenal. I knocked out a big chunk of cartilage out of my shoulder last year, ragdolling it down the hill. And doctors said, because I said, well, what do we do? Because I thought maybe I'd pulled my anchor out, because I've got an anchor in the shoulder. It was cartilage. And they said, there's nothing that we can do. I even spoke to a surgeon in New York that does 3D printing of cartilage. I wasn't a candidate because where it, the damage that I had and where it was. So I started doing a peptide called Sigma, and that's an oral peptide. There's another one called Cartilax, that's an injectable. So my goal was to do 4 weeks of the Sigma, then 4 weeks of the Cartilax, and then 3rd month, I'll do both together. I did 4 weeks of the Sigma, cartilage fixed, cartilage done.
Amazing.
Didn't even have to go into month 2 or 3.
And that one's the bioregulator, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Correct. So, taking advantage of these things now today, of what we have available to us, is absolutely unbelievable. So that's the change that I've made today. Of course, I'm doing all the other things. I'm doing the stretching, the mobility, the yoga, but it's the biohacks that we have available to us today that has changed. I don't think that's justifying me going out to do stupid things, but it's good to have that there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like you, again, like it'll be 6 weeks Friday. Well, 6 weeks on Friday since the surgery, 7 weeks on Saturday since the injury. I was at the gym doing a 40-kilo dumbbell pullover, and I had an old injury on my right elbow from when I was 14. My olecranon had fractured. It never healed. I thought it had I thought it had done what's known as a non-union. It had like 60% calcified, but it hadn't. The only thing that was holding it together was scar tissue. So as I did this 40-kilo dumbbell pullover, just as it went past my head, the olecranon snapped. So I've gone in and they've done like, I mean, you can't see the scar now.
Yeah, I can see it.
They've put a tension wire through here. They put crisscross steel through there. They put wires through my triceps tendon. I haven't trained now for upper body for like 7 weeks. I miss it, don't get me wrong, but the bioregulator peptides like the bone marrow, the cartilage, Cartilax, BPC, GHK, TB500, growth hormone, all these things, and intramuscularly injecting, all like that. Like I went to see my consultant after 2 weeks and I had a full bend. I had full rotation. He was like, I was like, right, sit down, grab a pen and paper. I'm going to give you some notes to take, because these things are now, as you say, available. And we can utilize all of these things if we know how to use them, as well as I'm doing all the right things as well. Like I'm using grounding, as you say. I'm using a scalar wave and a Rife frequency device where I strap it to my arm and I'm sending frequencies through the arm to generate that healing. I think that's Robert O'Becker's work where he spoke about, I think it was Robert O'Becker, where he was able to regrow a finger of a baby using the right voltage and stuff. So doing all those things, it now makes this recovery process a lot easier. Because again, like when I said to you on our audio notes, I've had a very similar journey to you. That's like my 8th surgery. I've had 4 on my right knee, tore the epicondyle and had stem cells in here, tore the labrum, had stem cells here, had some subacromial decompression done on this because I tore the rotator cuff. So we're not doing stupid stuff. It's just unfortunate that these things have happened, but it then gives us that capacity to help others. So this was why I was interested in that question, like how your coaching has changed and what you bring in for your clients. Because it sounds very, very similar to me. But this then leads me to a question which I know you wanted to speak about, and something which I find fascinating as well, because I think of myself in this way. And obviously, I think now, obviously, looking at what you've done, not just with your motocross, but with the Ironman and all those other types of things, which I'd love you to talk about as well, is this whole hybrid athleticism that you speak about. So for those that don't know what hybrid athleticism is, how would you explain that to them?
Well, you could kind of call it, you could say it was like, kind of like CrossFit, what you do or what you were doing, where you look at a lot of the top CrossFitters, they're holding a lot of muscle. They can kind of look like athletic bodybuilders, but they're extremely fit. Their athletic mobility, balance, coordination, VO2 max is absolutely phenomenal. So I'd say it's kind of something similar to that. So I did it in a perspective, or I've participated in hybrid athleticism from the perspective is that I love to weight train. I like to train for mental stability more than aesthetics. It's my active meditation. It gives me those AA batteries for the day. But then I like cardio. I'm one of these weirdos that absolutely loves cardio. A lot of people find it boring. I think that's active meditation. And I remember having a conversation with someone once, and they said, well, you'd have to drop a lot of weight to do a triathlon or anything like that. And I said, well, no, I wouldn't. I just need to get better at what I currently am. And if someone says you're going to suck at something, I generally kind of want to get signed up for it and see if that's true and possibly prove them wrong. So I decided to do an Ironman triathlon. Full Ironman with 6 months training. Within 4 months, I did a 70.3 because I just wanted to kind of prepare for it to see what to expect. And I was able to do it. And since then, I've done several Ironmans. I've done ultramarathon and Spartan, things like that. But I didn't lose the weight in order to do it. Would it made it easier? Probably, because I wouldn't have had to eat so many calories just to maintain that muscle tissue. But I learned a lot of things along the way. I realized I had to bring down the volume of my weight training because I was definitely overtraining. My heart rate variability was tanking. And I focused a little bit more on sprints during the week, whether that be swimming, running, or cycling. And then I'd go long and slow over the weekend just to kind of get used to time out there on the track or in the saddle or in the open water, whatever it may be. But that's how I've been able to combine it now. And it feels really good that being at like 215 pounds, I could go, you know what, I'm going to go for an 8-mile run. I'm going to go for a 6-mile run. It feels good that I can do that, but in a manner that is healthy. So you just, you don't want to overdo it. Like I said, HRV will tank, your testosterone levels can come down. So there is a fine line and a balance there. And being a heavier person, I try to do all my runs off-road or on a woodway curve, just to ensure that there isn't too much impact on my joints. But it's very important that I feel, being a bigger person, that you prioritize the number one muscle being your heart. And that is with cardiovascular exercise. You can't be a static ornament.
No, I agree with you. And it's the one thing that, as much as I loved CrossFit, I did find it beat me up a lot, like an awful lot. Like after about 5 years, every time I got out of bed, my knees would hurt, my back would hurt, my shoulders would hurt. And they're the main areas in CrossFit that you use repetitively over and over and over and over. But the one thing it did give me was that ability, as you say, to just say, right, I'm going to go and do that. So I did Spartans and all those types of things. I never trained for them. I just did them. And I had a really nice stark contrast. So before lockdown, I did a Spartan just before we locked down, and did the like the elite times with all of them with one of my friends, and that went really well. You know, like obviously you're doing all the obstacle stuff. That was fine. Burpees are fine. Swinging on bars, fine. Running's fine. Then didn't do it for the 2 years. Didn't do any CrossFit for 2 years over the lockdown period. I just thought I was give myself some time off and what have you. Then in between that time, I did a marathon, and we did it. Me and my friend did it again without training, just did it. I think it was 3 hours and 34 minutes or something like that. And then after lockdown finished, I was like, right, I'm going to do a Spartan again. I missed them. I didn't suck at the running because I did a lot of running during lockdown. I just did no athleticism. I did no power work. I did no jumps, no sprints, no nothing. It was just, there was no hanging off bars, no nothing. And when I came to like balance work, like running along the beams and climbing bars, I struggled. Like I was like, what's going on? My mate, he carried on doing it all. So he was flying up there and he's like, why can't you climb this rope faster than me? You're faster than me. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I really don't. And I missed that. So the second I had that opportunity, I didn't go back into CrossFit. I started working with Marcus Philly, the functional bodybuilding stuff. So started getting into all of that, just not for the fitness, because that was there, but for that capacity to be able to balance and move and change direction and hang and climb, all the things which we should naturally be able to do. So as a 215 pound muscly guy, how do you keep that capacity with you? Because doing those types of things at that load, or that weight, should I say, is a lot more impactful than it is for me, because I'm only like 75 kilos. So I don't know what that is in pounds, but I'm a lot lighter than you. So that's less impact for my joints. How do you keep that within your kind of your day-to-day work?
Well, I think it's quite easy to keep the engine, the cardiovascular engine, once you've attained that, you know, whether that comes from running, biking, swimming, mountain biking, whatever it is. It's quite easy to maintain. So I participate in those things. I'll go for a swim in the morning. I'll go play tennis or paddleboard, whatever. So I keep that cardiovascular engine. So when it comes to the weight training as well, I'm weight training 4 or 5 times a week. So I'm keeping my strength abilities there as well. I'm not necessarily doing as much functional work as I was doing. So when I do things like a Spartan or whatever, maybe I'll train a little bit towards it like 2 weeks before, just to get those neuro pathways firing, because I've got the strength, I've got the grip strength, I have the muscular endurance. That's not a problem. It's the balance, it's the coordination, it's those neuro pathways that just need to realign themselves. And after a couple of weeks, they kind of kick in. So I'd say that's probably it more than anything. But you know, I'm not trying to be elite in any of these things. You know, I'm not trying to win an Ironman. I'm just trying to participate and say I can do it and enjoy that kind of social connection that you get from it as well, because it is a different social pipeline in that world as opposed to, say, the fitness world. So I like to kind of balance between all of these.
So when it comes to how you coach your clients, in what order do you put these as like priority for them? So obviously, whether it's celebrity or not, like if they're coming to you, I'm assuming that's because they are in a less optimal state that they want to be in. I mean, obviously some of them might come to you as a bodybuilder and they're already built, but they don't have that movement capacity or the cardiovascular fitness. But just overall, how do you prioritize that in their training?
So a lot of it comes down completely to that person's goal. But the first thing that I usually focus on before I even get to training is their sleep. Because a lot of people, as I've noticed, compared to say 20 years ago, people sacrifice sleep more. They become entrepreneurs. They're holding down 2 jobs. They got 3 kids that participate in every sport you could think of. So they don't have, or they don't prioritize too much time for themselves. And the one thing that usually gets tapped in is their sleep. So I usually get them to prioritize the sleep because without the sleep, they're not going to perform. And then it's same with, staying in that parasympathetic dominant state to keep their cortisol levels down so, they can keep their stress hormones down for their longevity and to prevent catabolism. And then the one thing that I focus on after that, especially with European clients, is hydration. We know that around 70% of the body is made up of fluid. And if performance is down, it's usually because that person's dehydrated. They don't have enough minerals and hydration within their cells in order for those muscles to contract and relax in order for them to perform. So it's usually these 2 things that I focus on first, and then I look at their nutrition, because the training is usually the easiest bit. Most people can get to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, 4 or 5 hours a week. That's usually a given. Where people struggle usually is the sleep, hydration, and then nutrition. So I kind of focus on those first. And, maybe some people are all or nothing and they get it within the first week. Other people just need a transition and it may take 5 or 6 weeks. But once they actually got that consistency down, because a lot of people will try to overwhelm themselves, not purposely, and then they look at the glass at half full. It's like, well, I didn't do this, or half empty, sorry. I didn't do this. I'm kind of guilty of this, and now I've got shame, and now I'm gonna, not contact my trainer, and now I'm probably gonna eat this, because they've overwhelmed themselves. That's why a lot of people start in these gyms in January, try to do absolutely everything, and don't show up in February. So I like to transition bit by bit and start with baby steps.
Yeah, and that's such an important message, because again, like as you say, like the guys, the New Year's resolutioners, as they're called in gyms, they want to train 50 hours a day, 10 days a week, and they just make it incredibly hard for themselves. And it's all under the guise of, well, if I don't do it, it's because it's too hard, not because I failed. Where if you just titrate yourself into the process, start slowly, go to the gym once, then go twice, then go 3 times, go for 40 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever the case may be, but build yourself in. Because a lot of the clients that come to me, when I speak to them initially and I'm like, right, I want you to fill out the questionnaire, tell me what you're currently doing, what you're currently taking. Most of that form is filled up with the copious amounts of supplements they're taking. Thousands of supplements. And I'm like,
Yeah.
What's working? I don't know. Why are you taking them? Also, because X influencer on Instagram said it's a really good supplement and they're shredded. Yeah, but they're shredded anyway. So they always look like that. So yes, them taking it, it's going to look like it's working, but you don't know what's working, and they struggle to not take these things. So the first thing that I always start with, as well as sleep actually, is I want you to go at least a couple of weeks with just the bare minimum of supplements. Like what are you actually deficient in? What are you missing? Magnesium, all those other types of things. Let's just stay there and see how you feel when you're not getting copious amounts of signals coming into the body and the body doesn't really know what to do. Let's just get the bare basics done. I mean, do you find, again, with your clients, you get that same thing where they are taking copious amounts of things, they couldn't tell you which one is doing what?
Yeah, especially, ones that are coming from like the fitness world, they're taking absolutely everything. And then people that are coming from the longevity sector, they're doing every single biohack, but they're not doing the nutrition or the training or the work. It's usually a balance between both, but people will generally try to go for the fancy stuff. They like to get distracted by the fun, exotic biohacks and technology and the supplements, not looking at the hard work and the basics and the foundation that is needed before putting that icing on the cake. And you so rightly mentioned, and people, like if you look at all the supplements out there, there's hundreds, if not thousands of them, and they all have a benefit, but if you take all of them, you'll probably die. So what makes logical sense here? And like you said, you need to look at your blood work, your DNA maybe, and see where your deficiencies are. My deficiency is vitamin D. My body's ability to have B9, for instance, I've got the MTHR gene. So, of course, I'm going to supplement with that. But it's based on blood work, and seeing where those deficiencies are. Of course, you don't necessarily need to see you've got a deficiency in something to say, okay, I need to take creatine. Of course, it's performance-based products that will help. But taking all these supplements that that have no rhyme or reason doesn't make sense either. People think they can purchase their health and feel good about it as opposed to working for it, because the work requires work. It's a lot harder.
Exactly. They want that limitless pill. They want that magic bullet, which is going to make. And I had this conversation with one of my higher end clients where he was like, "Oh, just tell me what to take," and I'm like, "No, you have to do the work. You can't complain about the results you don't get from the work you don't do. So you have to do the work, do the basics things, and we will add the things in that you need. I'm not just going to give you loads of supplements and peptides so that you can keep living your, pardon the expression, shitty lifestyle, and this is going to offset it, because all that's going to do is it's going to keep you at baseline. You're never going to progress. You might never get worse either, but you're just going to stay here. Well, that's not living. That's just existing. We want to be optimal. Yeah. Exactly. We want to be optimal. That's the reason why people come to you. It's the reason why people come to me. They want to be optimal. And so if we're going to do that, I'm not going to give you 1,000 peptides to take, because that's the new thing as well now. Like, owning my own peptide company, I get this question all the time. What's the best grouping of peptides to achieve this? Well, there isn't one, because we're all very specific. So without knowing your history, I don't know. But you can't just take 10 peptides and expect to get these results. You have to do these basic things first. We have to know, do you need a mitochondrial peptide? Do you need SLU-PPP, PP332? Maybe not. Maybe your mitochondria are so disorganized and so overworked. If I give you something like that, it's going to overclock you and you're going to have a real problem. But because, again, everything's now trending and people want to take these things, I end up having to talk people away from purchasing all the things that they want to purchase, rather than saying to them, yeah, take all of them. And it's a difficult thing to unlearn adults. It's really difficult when they've been stuck in that mindset of, I'm just going to buy that thing and take that thing that's going to make me feel better, but I can still carry on and go and eat those donuts and have the pizza and drink on the weekends, when really you've got to get those basics right. So with peptides currently, we mentioned them briefly at the beginning, the things that you took to help you recover yours and what I've been taken to recover with mine. A lot of people know the BPC, the TB500 and stuff, but you've mentioned a couple which people wouldn't necessarily know about. So like the Cartilax and Sigma and stuff like that. Are there any other ones, and the SLU-PP, are there any other ones which you see at the moment which could have a real kind of health-changing effect on people?
Yeah, so the one thing that I've been doing for a few years now, and I'll do it once or twice a year, is like the epitalon. So, we mentioned about our biological age earlier. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about telomeres, which kind of is the biological strands of DNA that dictate your biological age. And to prevent them from shortening, we've been shown that epitalon can actually help with that. So I'll usually stack that with pinealon, which kind of helps reset the pineal gland. One thing that I notice sometimes, I will feel that I've got like central nervous system exhaustion, but I'm kind of wired and tired. I'm always going. I've got like this nervous, anxious energy, and then I can't sleep at night, even though I should be absolutely exhausted. And that tells me, okay, I need to kind of reset my central nervous system and reset my pineal gland. So I'll take pinealon. And then with that, I'll take something like a thymolin or a thymosin alpha-1, TA1, something like that, that is great for my immune system. And I'll usually kind of stack those three and do those once or twice a year. That's what I like. And then, of course, you mentioned Sloop, which is like an exercise mimicker. There's so many people that are contacting me right now. They want every fat burning peptide that there is, and I did a video about this a while back, some months ago. I'm talking about the GLPs, obviously the Reda, the Tessa, the semaglutide, and then we've got the Sloop, and we've got all the secretagogues that are out there specifically for localized fat loss or just for growth hormone production. And then you got the tesofensin, and people literally want to take every single one of these in one go with their fat burning supplements to burn as much fat as possible. So again, people like to throw like a shotgun approach to these things and have no idea what is working, what is possibly having damage, what is affecting their sleep, what is going to have a negative effect, or what, So I think being this, as part of the research industry, people really do have to do their due diligence and make sure that they listen to the right people And then even if they do, still take it as a pinch of salt, because we're all different. We're all unique in our own ways. Like I like to try before I buy and suggest things. So, I've had a client take tesofensine, 500 mcg, not a problem. But I tried it with 250. I felt like I was on speed for 2 days. I couldn't sleep, so everybody is different, and you've got to
Yeah.
see what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, with the retatrutides, like the semaglutides, tirzepatides, and we've got these other ones coming out now. You've got these 4-stage agonists, which are coming out in an oral form, which as an owner of a peptide company, I love that, because it means that I can make this more available to people that need it. But it also means people that just want a quick weight loss before they go and hit the beach are going to be taking these things. And they're great, but they also have, particularly if you go down the pharmaceutical route and get them from your doctor, the dosages are way too high.
Mm-hmm.
The side effects are unbelievable. Like right now, Ozempic are going through a whole heap of trouble with their one because of what it's causing. And it's because people don't, doctors don't know what they are. Doctors don't know how to prescribe them. The doses, I say, are way too high. And again, one of my clients said, the doctor said, take this and you can eat what you want. And I'm like, oh my God, like, no, because if you're taking something like semaglutide or tirzepatide, Reta's slightly different because it does have anecdotally some lean muscle sparing effects if you train as well. But Sema and tirzepatide are known to cause rapid muscle loss. So you've now got they're calling it in Dubai like Ozempic face or something, where they're looking really drawn, they're looking like skeletons, they're passing out on the treadmill, and they look like sticks because they're losing all their muscle, but they're still doing all this high intensity work, and they're on the spin bikes and they're going to this body pump class and this class and they're just overdoing everything. And because their hunger's gone, and because they've obviously got now a really slow gastric emptying as well, you've got potentials for SIBO and all these other types of things. People just really, as you say, need to do their due diligence with these, because GLP-1s are incredibly powerful. And when I get customers saying to me, what's the best one for me? I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your history. I don't have your bloods in front of me. I don't have any tests of any kind in front of me. I don't know, but please do your own research. And these are the 3 that we stock. Just do your research on them. See what you think is the best option for you. But listen, if you've just got a little bit of puppy fat, don't take it. If you're obese or you're metabolically challenged, fine. But not if you're just looking to trim up to go to the beach. Don't do that. Just go and do the work. Eat well, go into a deficit, do your cardio, do your weights, do all these things. Don't jump on that, because it's not going to help. There are other things that you can do. Again, you could take a testosterone if you wanted to, or a CJC or an IPA. That's going to help you with body recomp. It's going to help you with your growth hormone. It's going to help you with your recovery. Your skin's going to look great. I just don't think, again, these GLPs are in a good position right now when it comes to, particularly semaglutide and tirzepatide, the Ozempic and Mounjaros, because they're just getting a really bad name. But I listened to your video about these ones. So with those 3, personally for me, I think Reta is incredible. But again, microdosed and starting very low and building your way up as you need to. Again, like you, I won't recommend anything unless I've tried it. I don't need to use Reta at all, but I was like, I'm going to try it anyway, see how it happens. I only started at 100 micrograms 3 times a week, then went to 150, then 200, then 250. I got up to 400 and got this nauseating headache. So I was like, right, I'm backing this right back down to 250, stayed at 250, didn't really get too much appetite suppression. If anything, it made me hungrier, which it can do at a microdose. And it gave me a ton of energy. So I was like, right, well, this is great. I can utilize this with my own training. Like if I want to start gaining some mass or what have you, I can use this. So I like Reta in that regard. But where do you stand at the moment with these GLPs and what's going on with Ozempic and Mounjaro and all these other ones?
Yeah, so good question, and good comments as well about, and of course I'm generalizing about a lot of the doctors getting people on the GLPs with no outcome. There's no training protocol, no nutritional program, and there's no goal in sight of, okay, we need to get here and then maybe we'll back you off. Like I know somebody personally here in Boise who's obese, like morbidly obese. And she's been on Ozempic a couple of years now, and there's no talk at all whatsoever with her doctor of when you're going to get off. Nothing like that. And the thing is, her diet still sucks. So let's say she was deficient before in all her valuable nutrients for her bone health to prevent osteoarthritis that she deals with. Now, so she's eating bad before, but now she's eating bad, but now she's got the slowing of the gastric emptying, so she's even more deficient for her bone health and for her muscle health, obviously because she's losing a lot of muscle. And, we've heard about, the pancreatic tumors, heard about people going blind. And a lot of this is because of nutrition deficiencies. There's no antioxidants. There's a lot of free radical damage that is happening. And we're feeding the wrong cells in our body because of this, because there's nothing to counteract with these senescent cells to get rid of the senescence or anything like that. So it's absolutely horrendous. Like you said, it should be used, however, with proper guidelines if and when needed, because like this person, you're going to be on it for years and probably doing yourself more harm being on it than actually not being on it. But then with a Retta, exactly what you mentioned, like, it should be utilized specifically for people that really require it. But there's a lot of people in the fitness and bodybuilding industry that are now using it because as they're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, there's a lot of food noise. They're able to eliminate that food noise. They're still able to consume the food, the protein that is required in order for them to maintain or build muscle, because like you said, there is a anti-catabolic effect possibly with the Retta. So they're utilizing it in a microdose form there specifically as well. But the one thing that I noticed is, of course, there's the blood sugar stability aspect to it. So I measured my blood glucose and obviously that become a little bit more stable. I'm pretty good with my blood sugar levels anyway, but I could see how it could have a very positive effect for those that are insulin resistant. But the one thing that I really like about that is that it just switches off the food noise. It isn't just a physical dampening of hunger, it's a psychological dampening of that hunger, of that appetite out of control. Because you get a lot of people, of course, if you're eating well, you eat something, even though you're full, you've had that signal to your brain that lights up that bliss point to say, you're finished, you're done, but you're still like, what else can I eat? I want something sweet. So it kind of shuts off all that noise. So I really like it for that aspect for clients that deal with those issues.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Retta is, and particularly the next 4 stage that's coming out as well, I forget the name, it begins with B, but they are going to be very helpful when it comes to people that are particularly doing bodybuilding prep and stuff like that, or anybody that's got that food noise. But do it at a dose which is the right dose. Don't do a whole bolus dose and expect to get really good effects from it, because you're going to get some side effects from it regardless. But some interesting stuff came out about semaglutide recently, about how it was a university of either Michigan or Minnesota, I forget which one it was, that showed that a low dose of semaglutide, it was like 150 micrograms up to 500 micrograms built up over time, is very good for all addictions. Like all addictions.
Yeah, that's true.
Food, nicotine,
alcohol,
the whole lot, which is incredible. And I'm getting a lot of people now asking me about that. But something else that came out was they did a trial with it in a study for breast cancer, and they had a 20% reduction in the study group that used semaglutide it was in mice. They had a 20% reduction in tumor size utilizing semaglutide during treatment. So it actually enhanced how the cancer treatment was working. So again, they've all got really valuable points to them, but again, it's how we have this, as you say, all or nothing approach. If I'm going to inject TRT, I'm taking 1,000 milligrams a week. Really? You don't. Why?
Yeah. That's not TRT now. But I guess, for instance, like you mentioned in regards to, reducing that likelihood of cancer or able to control it, I wonder how much is actually controlled by the actual food intake or sugar intake that can usually feed a cancer cell. If they're not eating the sugar or, they're eating less of it, now they're not feeding those cells as much.
Yeah. And I think it is that as you say, like the main point of the glucose help there as well. Like, even though Sema doesn't work on that same glucagon receptor as Retta does, it's going to have some kind of effect within the blood sugar regulation, because it is a diabetic drug. And obviously we know with cancer, it's the Warburg effect. So we're getting this glucose driven growth, where if the body's now getting a signal saying we're going to drive it into muscle cells instead, and we're going to do it this way, then the cancer is going to get starved because it hasn't got that available glucose it needs to grow. So I think, again, mechanistically, that's potentially how it's going to be working. But this is where I think these peptides, these GLP-1s will start having a really good kind of impact with the other things that they can do outside of obesity and diabetic kind of approaches. I think they've got a much broader aspect of what they can be utilized for, particularly Retta. Retta's got some amazing things that anecdotally at the moment that it can do. So peptides aside, when it comes to we've got in the UK now this weekend coming up. I'm not sure if you're going. The Health Optimization Summit is coming up this weekend. I know you've attended there before. This is a big biohacking event in the UK, probably the biggest one that we do. What are some of the more interesting biohacking things that you are either doing yourself or you've seen that are coming out, which you'd like to have to actually give a go?
Right. Interesting. Yeah, good question. So, I can't think of anything right now because I know they won't have them at the Health Optimization Summit. But it's like I've done the EBO2, I've done obviously the recharge, the biochargers and all that sort of stuff. So, the one thing that I notice that I go to these events, it's a lot of the same things, but they're just different forms of them. So we've got more red lights, we've got more hyperbaric oxygen chambers, we've got more ice baths that have hydrogen in them. I started doing breathing. I've always been a fan of hydrogen. So, I'll do the tablets, I have the soaks, I have hydrogen in my ice bath, but I started breathing hydrogen this year.
The intranasal, I did as well.
Yeah, so I've got one of the machines from Alex Tavana and Tyler LeBaron that will be coming out next month, and I really, really like that. I actually tested that some months ago, and it really put me in this meditative state, but it was really, really hard to describe. It's like euphoric energy that put me in this meditative state. So I had a combination of both, because when I came out of it, I thought, God, how am I going to do this podcast now that I had to do with Sean Wells? But I was on point, but I was just very level-headed. Is very different. So I really enjoyed that. But the other thing that I really want to give that I'm looking into at the moment, I'm speaking to Ben Greenfield about this because he just had it done recently, and I know Brian Johnson has, but I don't speak to Brian, is the plasma exchange, where you get the young blood of donors. And I think Ben had like 10 IV bags, or it came from 10 donors. I can't remember, one or the other. And he said like he was phenomenal. It felt like his eyesight was better. His libido was much better. His strength, he put on a lot of muscle as well, because, he's must be in his 40s now. And he said, that he had that done some months ago, but he's still feeling those effects right now. So it's something that I'm really looking into. There's a place in Austin, that's the only place that I feel in the US that is allowing to do it legally presently. So I'm kind of looking into that. But yeah, you're not going to find these at any events, unfortunately.
You won't find that at the Health Optimization Summit, that's for sure.
Yeah. The thing that you're going to find that's a little bit more intrusive is just the IVs. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the IVs, to be honest with you, like the NAD, because I'm thinking, to me, it's like having a month's worth of protein in one sitting. You're not going to do that, and there's only so much that your body will absorb. So I like to kind of microdose those things. But the Health Optimizer, out of all the events that I've been around the world, I'm not shitting on any of the other events. They're all really good, but I feel Tim's events is definitely the best. I said that I'm not going to speak at any events this year because last year was just insane. I took 85 flights to different events, and I said I'm not doing that again. So I'll just attend a couple that I'm going to anyway and possibly speak. So I'm going to the Olympia anyway because I exhibit there with my brand. So I'm going to speak about peptides at the Olympia University, for instance. So that's kind of where I'm limiting myself to this year. But I speak to Tim all the time. He's a great guy. And obviously I was with Dr. Dome on the weekend in LA. He'll be there as well.
Yep. Amazing. I'm actually going to be sat at the VIP. Probably I won't be with Ben, but I'll probably be around Ben Greenfield then. I'm actually going to have to ask him about what he's just had done, because that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
That's incredible. I think it's good what Tim does, because, as I said, it's the only thing in the UK like it. In America, you get quite a few of them, where obviously they had their Austin event at the beginning of the year. So it's nice that we get this one. And I'm one of the MCs as well, so I get to announce the speakers on the stage and all that kind of stuff, which is cool. So I'll get to kind of speak. I think Gary Brecker is going to be there and all those guys as well. So I'll get to speak to them. Gary is actually going to be doing the Q&A kind of fireside chat with Domi. So that'll be cool. Really? Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool. All right, I'm gonna have to see if I can attend that one. That'd be really cool. I think Gary Brecker's got some very, very interesting insights into the way this kind of biohacking side of things work. I mean, one of the things that I know that he was a proponent for at the beginning is the breathwork side of things. And I know you said that your cardio and stuff like that and the gym is your active meditation. So, and obviously you said with the intranasal hydrogen, I had the same effect as well. I find it very zen. It puts me in a very centered space. Do you do breathwork outside of that, or meditation of any kind like that?
Yeah, I tried the breath work. Didn't really do anything for me. I gave it a go. Went and done one of Wim Hof's events some years back. But so, for instance, so when I get in the ice bath, I just jump in. It just doesn't bother me. I'm not used to it because I still reluctantly. I don't want to do it every day. There's not a day that I want to do it. I just go in and do it. All or nothing. But breath work. Yeah, I've never really got into the breathwork. Didn't really do anything for me. But meditation, it has. I've used various devices. I find I've done a 10-day Vipassana, which is like a silent retreat. You're meditating from 6 in the morning till 8 in the evening. I've done that as a reset. And, unfortunately, we don't get to put ourselves, or fortunately, in those environments quite often. So I find in the normal environment, I do benefit from biohacks. So I've used the brain tap. I know Dr. Patrick Porter, great guy.
I love brain tap.
Yeah. So I've used that. And the one thing that I actually like a little bit more than that is a device that's much cheaper, actually. And that's called the Muse. The Muse. Which is like an EMG device that measures your brain waves. So you can actually listen, through headphones, you're with headphones at the same time. And that could be the sound of a stream or, the usual thing, birds, ocean, river, whatever it is. And if your brain is active, that volume is very loud. So you have to be conscious all the time, focusing on making that volume quieter and quieter and quieter. And you know what the brain is like. It'll just wander off without you even knowing it, but it'll tell you, oh, you've wandered, the volume's up. Okay, back. So it trains you into that state of focus because we're in such a distracted world now with the devices. We got calls, we're scrolling, we've got Amazon, we got Uber Eats, whatever it is. That's like 9 drugs on that device. That's easily accessible. That's releasing dopamine all the time. But we don't get to release oxytocin and serotonin as we should. But that allows you to kind of do that and train you on a daily basis to focus. Like I like to read. I'll go to bed at 7:30 in the evening. I know it's early, but I'll read for like 45 minutes. Again, that will help me switch my brain off. But on top of that, I feel that it gets me trained to focus. So if I'm editing content, I need to be focused. But this is the only way that I can do that. So I find the Muse is very, very good for me.
So you're the first person that I've spoken to that actually uses the Muse. It's one of those things that's been in my basket to purchase for a long time. I'm talking years. And it's always one of those things of like, does it do what it says it's going to do? I don't know. And then I want to speak to someone that's used one. I've never, even at events, I've never found anyone that's used one. You're the first person. So I think on your recommendation, I like that because I meditate a lot. I meditate 2-3 times a day, particularly in the evening. And like you, I go to bed early, like not at 7:30, but I'm probably in bed by about 8:30, 8:45. And I like reading fiction books at night because it puts me in that creative dream state. I won't read factual books during the evening. I'll do that during the day.
Yeah.
But all fiction. I'll park that. I was going to ask you what's your fiction book at the moment, but I'll ask you that in a minute. So I'll always do a meditation before I go to bed to put me into that nice, calm state. And then I'll read a book, as you say, for like 45 minutes and just really get into the story, open up that creative part of my mind. And then my dreams are vivid. Like whatever downloads need to happen, partitioning of my brain needs to happen, just happens while I'm asleep. And I have a very good dream recall because of that. Fiction books, either ones that you would recommend or one that you're currently reading right now?
So I like it. Like I've really got into Jenna Rose. So she had like The Perfect Marriage and then The Perfect Divorce and You Shouldn't Come Here. So I really like her books. If I'm talking about like a UK writer like Ian Rankin, the Scottish author, I like all of his stuff. James Patterson, I know like he's quite a mainstream author, but I like a lot of his stuff. That's kind of what I'm kind of digging into at the moment. What I got recently though, because when I was in the UK, it was my birthday. I I got books from my parent, from my dad, from my sister. So one was on Oasis. I read that while I was in Italy, and the other one was on Rockfield Studios, which is in Monmouth, where a lot of the top bands like Motorhead, Led Zeppelin, Oasis, the Stone Roses, all these bands have recorded. Bohemian Rhapsody was recorded there, which is in Monmouth in Wales. So I'm just in the process of reading that one at the moment.
Amazing. I think I'd like to get that one. And for my dad as well. My dad used to be in the music industry back in the day, so I know he'll appreciate that one as well.
He'd love that.
He'd love it. He worked for Island Records and Universal as well. So he was around all those bands back then, so he'll love that. And he loves The Who and Led Zeppelin and stuff. So what was that last one? What was it called?
The Who recorded there. It's something Rockfield Studios. I think it's called Rockfield Studio. I could send you a picture of it. It's like a pink cover.
Yeah, send me a picture. That will remind me to buy that, because I've gone into more of the actual fiction side of things now, and I blame Chris Williamson for this. So not that he's ever going to watch this, but if you do, Chris, it's your fault. He recommended on the podcast a book called Red Rising, and I read the first. There's like 6 books so far, and the guy that writes it won't stop writing them. There's more and more books that keep coming out, but Red Rising is about this kind of fractioned world or universe where we all live on different planets, and the reds live on underground in Mars, the golds live on Luna, which is the moon, and they've all got these hierarchical positions. Like reds are like the lowest of the low, the golds are the highest of the high, and they're the ones that have all the aesthetic treatments done, so they look like gods. They've all got built bodies, and they've all got blonde hair and blue eyes, all this stuff. And it's about how this young lad who's a miner, who mines all the ore out of Mars for all the higher wealth people, rises up. Basically, that's why it's called Red Rising. And it's graphic, it's brutal, it's violent, but it's addictive beyond anything, that book. And then from that one book, I've carried on reading every single one. I mean, they're all sat behind me here, but they're incredible. So I can't remember the guy. Was it Piers? What's his name? Pierce Brown. Pierce Brown wrote those.
Okay.
And UK authors, I like Neil Gaiman. I think Neil Gaiman's very good. I read his book after it was recommended on a Tim Ferriss podcast called The Graveyard. That was very good. And I'm liking at the moment a guy called Brandon Sanderson, and he wrote the book called Mistborn, about this girl who has the power to control the mist, basically. And then there's another guy called Jason Christoff, which I think you'd like him. He wrote Empire with the Vampire and Nevernight and stuff like that. It's very gothic, it's very dark, but the Empire with the Vampire is incredible because it's not how people expect it to be. And Nevernight is about a girl called Mia who, again, can control shadows, but she doesn't know that she can control shadows. And she ends up befriending this shadow cat who she calls Mr. Kindly, who helps her kind of avenge her father's death and stuff. Again, very cool. She ends up this brutal Amazonian kind of like Roman, like god kind of woman who can fight anybody and win everything. But that's where my mind, that's where my mind goes at night when I read my fiction books. But moving away from the fiction side of things. So with your current regime that you do, with the peptides, the biohacking, the walking treadmill, all these things that you're currently doing, and with everything that you're doing with your companies, what's your personal goal at the moment? Because, you know, you've launched the supplements, you've written books, you've opened gyms, you know, you've just, I think you've just come back from your honeymoon and all of that kind of stuff, and you've done all of this stuff. What's next for Kris Gethin? What's the world going to be seeing from you?
Well, we've already got probably the next year and a half planned out of supplements. Of course, these things always move. There's always targets. There's always new things that are coming out of research, out of scientific literature that we may implement, and we understand that. But we've got probably about a year and a half of supplements that are pretty much formulated. If they're not formulated, they're down on paper, but most of them are formulated, whether that be a liver health supplement, whether that be a collagen with all types of five types of collagen with a lot of other USBs in there. You know, we've got all of these kind of down at the moment, and intra workout is going to be our next with Vitago. So that's going to keep me busy for sure. The other thing is my training, the online training. So we are going to create more of a community base within the online
Amazing.
training. Of course,
Yeah.
you know, I have something that's called VIP Plus, where they get all the tests, the biological age, the DNA, the blood, blah, blah, blah. They have my WhatsApp. Then I have the VIP. What we want to do with the VIP, that's more email, online. We want to bring a little bit more of a social affluence to that. And then with my gym franchise, we're probably going to be launching probably about 8 more gyms over the next 2 years in India. You know, those are the things. But all that to be said, my goal is to spend more time in Boise. So, you know, like I took 43 or 44 flights in the first quarter of this year alone. And the funny thing is, you know, I'll travel a lot of the time to talk about anti-aging or reversing your biological age, where it seems to contradict itself when
By
I'm
the time.
traveling so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really, really love being in the mountains, mountain biking, camping, hiking, being on a lake. I just haven't had the opportunity because I've been saying yes to this opportunity, yes to that opportunity. And it's taken until this year for me to realize the opportunity is actually to be here and be on my schedule and not committed to so many things, even though I'm humbled and I feel very lucky to have a phone call from someone to say, hey, will you come here? Will you do this? You know, I have to step back and allow that opportunity to be under my control and do what I want to do here. Of course, I'll travel, but I'd like to travel on my terms, because a lot of time when people say, what's this country like? What's that country like? I'm like, I have no idea. I saw a hotel and an expo hall or a gym, and that was it, you know?
Yeah. Wow. I think that's something, again, like when you're entrepreneurial and you've got these drives, and as you say, you've got this energy to want to make the world better for people and you want to help people, it always, at the beginning, comes at a cost to yourself. You're always in that giving mode rather than the receiving mode. And having that balance, that foot on either side of the path, so we're not extremes in either end, is the ultimate goal. That's the reason why we start these things. It's the reason why we build our companies, because we think, oh, it will give us more time. When ultimately that entrepreneurial side of things never gives you more time until you reach that crescendo point where you're like, right, I think I've done enough, and these things are now perpetual and they can do what they need to do. I can be less hands-on and more where I am and actually enjoy what it is that I've built, because otherwise, why have I built it? If I'm never going to be able to spend the time with my wife or my family or whatever, and as you say, enjoying nature and the mountains, all those things, what was the point of you doing it all? You may as well have just not done it. So I think having that balance is one of the things in life that we have to kind of strive for, is having that foot on either side. And in the Tao, in Taoism, they call that the middle path, like having that foot either side, because nature never rushes and yet achieves everything, where man is always busy and achieves nothing. And that's because we're always putting in too much effort. It's that, what do they call it? They call it a wu wei, that effortless action. You can do all these things without there being this tense stress with it all, because once it's on your terms, once you've got the reins back and you can say yes or no to whatever it is that you want to say yes or no to, you can now truly start living. So I'm really, having seen you gone from like, and I wrote this down because I couldn't remember the name of it, like the DTP method. That's when I first discovered you. Horrific workout. I've never been so sore in my entire life other than doing that workout. I made my dad do it with me as well, and he chastised me for weeks after that. But I loved it. I thought it was amazing. But again, that adrenaline seeking. But seeing you go from where you were to where you are, and everything that you've achieved, like with 8 more gyms opening and all those other things, I'm really pleased to hear for you that you're going to start stepping back a little bit to give yourself a little bit more time to enjoy stuff, because you deserve it, brother. You've changed so many lives and done so many positive things to help the world. It's nice to hear that you're going to start putting that energy into you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny because, you know, I'm always having, you know, we have to have like cleaners come around the house because we're not here, or someone to mow the lawn because we're not here. You know, I've been here the past month or so to mow the lawn a couple of times. I'm like, I actually enjoy this. I actually, this is not bad, So it's just the normal things that you kind of want to do, and and be present in doing it. I don't need my headphones on while I'm doing it. I got an electric mower, so I could use headphones, but I don't. Just to enjoy the kind of normalcy in life. And then, speaking of video series, I did a daily video trainer a year and a half ago. I actually guest posed on a stage here, where I hadn't been on stage since 2009 when I was competing in drug-free bodybuilding. So I was like, okay, I'll get in shape then. I'll do a video series showing that. And I actually included DTP on every third week of that training protocol.
Wow.
Throughout this daily video trainer. And now that becomes so successful. Of course, it was me getting shredded. So many people want a new muscle building trainer. But I haven't been here for 12 weeks in order to do it, So now, over the next year or so, that could be a possibility if I'm stuck here in one place.
It'd be amazing. You can revamp DTP and bring it back into the 2025s, 2026s. That would be, I wouldn't, it was brutal the first time. I don't know how you'd make it like better in that sense.
Well, I did it basically on this fat loss trainer because the DTP can lead to overtraining if you're going to do it for 4 weeks consistently, so I'll always stop it at 4 weeks if it's just like a short burst. I got a client that needs to get in shape really, really quick. But what I did in this video series, the first week was kind of lower reps. When I say low, like 8 to 12. And then in the week 2 is like kind of medium reps, like say, 16 to 18. And then it was DTP for week 3. And then we'd come back, different exercises, different movements, etc. But then we'd repeat that and do that through the entirety of the 12 weeks. And I felt that was perfect. So I'd probably use something similar to that for the muscle building program. The one thing that would change dramatically, though, would be the nutrition and the supplementation, of course.
Of course, definitely. I'm excited for you to launch that. I'll give that one a go. My arm will be ready by then. I'm hopefully going to be given the all clear to start being able to load my arm again. Again, not being able to train upper body. I watched your video the other day with the shoulder injury, and you were saying like you hadn't trained upper body. You only trained like one side of your body and what have you, and it was just getting to you a little bit. This is like, as I say, 7 weeks on Saturday, and I'm happy. Like I'm okay because I can train legs. It's anabolic. It's all good. And again, very grateful that the dumbbell. The elbow broke past my head and not in front of my face, because that would have caved me in and I would not have been able to have this conversation with you, because I wouldn't be here with a 40-kilo dumbbell smashing my skull in. But I have got to a point where I'm like, I miss training upper body. I need to do something different than the 4 exercises. So I'm hoping I'll be fully ready to go when you launch that, and I'll definitely give that a shot because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and train your opposing side, obviously, to prevent that catabolism on the injured side. Same as heat therapy, I find that sauna actually prevents that muscle loss. There's studies that show that as well. Yeah, so check out the studies. Most of the studies are in more of an elderly population, but they're definitely there. So I was definitely using the sauna all the time, and using some BFR bands, some cuffs as well.
I've got some BFR.
Yeah, that can really, really help as well to create some trauma satellite signaling to the area as well. Because, at the end of the day, we're going to do whatever we can to prevent that catabolism and then focus on anabolism without putting too much strain on the injury.
That's a really good idea. I'm actually going to ask my consultant on Friday about doing some BFR. He'll probably say no, but I'm just going to do it anyway, because it's got to that point where I'm like, I need to move it now. Like I need it to actually start being able to do some things. I can feel it's healed to the point where the bone's fused, but it now needs to get that movement, that range of motion again, because it feels like it's getting a bit tight around the joint. So I would like to be able to express that a little bit more. And BFR, I actually forgot I had a pair in there. It's a very, very good idea. So Kris, brother, I really want to be respectful of your time. It's been amazing having you on. It really has. So before you go, I'm going to put everything that you've sent me in the show notes anyway, but if people want to work with you, if people want to come and find you, where's the best places?
It's probably best for them to come find me on Instagram. So that's Kris, Kris, Gethin, Gethin. Of course, I got a load of different websites, but that's probably got to be the house that they can interact with me best.
Yeah, and then people can still come on and do the VIP and the VIP Plus with you, all that stuff?
Yes, yeah, it's application only. I have less spots for the VIP Plus because there's only so many people I can give my WhatsApp to. But I do have them, and if people want to sign up and apply, for sure, they can reach out to me.
Amazing, amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this. I was fanboying out a little bit, I have to say. It's been a dream to have my own podcast and obviously get the man, the myth, the legend, Kris Gethin on here to have a chat. So thank you for listening. Kris, thank you for coming on, brother. I really, really do appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, stay blessed and stay well.